Most Indians believe that Russia is our natural friend and America is our natural enemy. This belief is so deeply rooted that we rarely stop to question it. But what if I tell you that this belief is not based on today's reality, but on emotions that were formed more than 50 years ago? In this episode, I want to talk about why India is still emotionally stuck in Cold War era thinking and why this mindset no longer serves us now. To understand this, we need to go back to the 1950s. The United States were deeply paranoid about communism. Anything that slightly looked like socialist was seen as a threat. The period was known as McCarthy era, a time when the America hunted the communists aggressively both domestically and internationally. And at this time, the India's position was catastrophic to them. India had just got independence. Our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was ideologically inclined to the Fabian socialism, state planning, public sector dominance, government led development, and officially India has a foreign policy called non alignment. But in practice, it was anything else than non alignment because India often took positions that were openly critical of the United States, whereas ignoring the other communist positions. For example, America, when involved in the Korean War, the India criticized it very strongly, as well as India supported the China's claim over Tibet, despite the Tibet has its own autonomous identity, and it is still fighting for it to this day. And India, however, aggressively do not condemn the communist aggression in Korea. Not only that, it was very well known at the time that the Korean communists were backed by the Soviet Union and the China. Still, India decided that due to the inclination of Jawaharlal Nehru towards socialism and thinking that USSR and China are our natural friends, he decided he will not get involved in it. And from American public perspective, this didn't look like neutrality. It looked like opposition. As the Cold War tensions grew, United States were desperately looking for a clear ally in South Asia, and that ally turned out to be a neighborhood country that got independence just with us called Pakistan. Now, Pakistan was willing to openly align with itself with the United States. Geographically, it was close to the Soviet Union's Central Asian territory, and it was very important to counter the Soviet influence as well as the Soviet leaning a big state like India. Hence, the America became close to Pakistan and the Pakistani establishment became close to American establishment, particularly the American military establishment. And this brings us to the most important point that not only United States supported Pakistan in its 1965 battle, but as well as one of the most emotionally charged thing that is still told us to this day about the Russia-India friendship in the 1971 India-Pakistan War, which is also known as the Bangladesh Liberation War. When India intervened in the East Pakistan to support the Bangladesh liberation, the Soviet Union openly backed India, whereas the United States supported Pakistan. Now, many people think that it as friendship. It was not a gesture of friendship, it was out of the interest. Supporting India not only weakened our American ally near their territory called Central Asia, but it also weakened the Pakistan by splitting it into nearly even population two countries, and who would not like it? But Indians remember it so much emotionally to this day that whenever India Pakistan relationship came up and talk about Russia came up, this story will be told you by many Indians to this day that Russia stood out with us, the America stood against us. However, there is a reality check that I would like to give you to all that the Soviet Union no longer exists and Russia is not what Soviet Union was to have. And by the way, to be clear, Russia or the Soviet Union never supported India in 1962 war against China, and it even didn't support us during the recent conflicts in the a border area with the China and in the conflicts in Galwan, it is clear that whenever some conflict will broke out between India and China, Russia will remain neutral or will be inclined towards China. Why? Because Russia is more weaker than ever before and far more dependent on China than ever before. In all three terms, whether it is economically, geographically, strategically, or by the terms of military, in each and every term, the China has now a clear thing over Russia. So now the question arises, if Russia is not our ally, what about the United States? Isn't United States a selfish country that fights war for money, oil, influence? Well, that belief at first sound convincing because it is a belief that you heard from many journalists and everyday in media, but that belief deserve a little bit of closer examination. Of course, United States will act in its interest. Every country act its own interest. But the real question here is if the interest align with a certain country of the United States, how far it is willing to go to support it. The answer is in the history. For example, United States fought a full-blown battle in South Korea, a country that was war-stricken, has no oil, no major natural resources. It helped Europe, a war-devastated Europe, to rebuild itself through Marshall Plan, which was a great monetary plan which needed a lot and lot of money. Not only that, it reconstructs entire Japan after it was devastated by the war and atomic bombing. These countries don't become America's colonies, they become extremely powerful economically. They are some of the top economies of the world, and the people in these countries are some of the highest per capita income earning peoples in the world. The idea that the America fights for oil or anything mineral doesn't survive even basic logic. And by the way, we need to remember something that today's India is not the India of the Nehru's era. We have already liberalized our economy. We are no longer a socialist like state that we once were. Our biggest challenge in the today's day is China in all the three terms economically, military, and alongside our borders. And China is closely aligned with Pakistan. In reality, if we still cling to this Cold War nostalgia of remembering that Russia is our friend, America is our enemy, then it is a inertia that will no longer allow us to progress in any sector, whether it's economic or military. Hence, we need to remember only one thing that the foreign policy is not about loyalty and gratitude, that there are no permanent friends, there are just permanent interests. Russia supported us when it suited its interest, and to this day only supported when it suit its interest. If it conflicts China, it will not support us. Hence, we need to understand that America's interest align with us far more than Russia. Russia cannot stand up to China because they are too much dependent upon it. So finally, we need to remember just one thing, that there are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies, there are just permanent interests. And in the long term interest of India, we need to think strategically, not emotionally, and our interest best align with the United States of America. This is all for today's episode. Hope you like it. Hope you like my analysis. Hope you like my way of thinking. If you like it, you can subscribe to my channel. This video might be on Spotify or YouTube. So I hope you can support me.